I can't.
Who is it?
I don't know.
Hey, it's Connor!
That is amazing. So really,
Who are you?
If you just cover this much
of your
the rest of the face,
just completely.
That is amazing.
Look, where'd Connor go?
Did you guys know that I look like this?
Oh!
This episode of iFanboy is brought to you by GoDaddy.com and Netflix.com.
Welcome to another star-studded edition of iFanboy, the comic book discussion show.
That's
As
presumptuous.
Always, I am Ron.
I am the Internet's Connor.
I am the Internet's Josh Flanagan. We realized that we have never talked about superhero costumes. And what is there that is just more indicative that you are looking at a superhero than a guy in a costume?
Capes and cowls.
Capes and cowls.
Tights and underwear.
Spandex.
Yes. Leather.
Skin tight spandex.
Leather.
Well, it's funny because it is the source of so much
ridicule.
It is. It's ridicule.
Yep.
It's like the people who don't like superhero comics, that's the first thing that they pick on. Is, look what they're wearing. And, if you saw a guy dressed like...
Would you rather be wearing yellow spandex?
Yeah. If you saw a guy dressed like any of that in real life, for the most part, you would probably get on the other side of the train. You would avoid them on that side of the road.
Yeah, like if you ever saw Hawkeye in real life, you're like, who's the guy in the purple?
Yeah. Purple and blue.
It's ridiculous.
It's totally ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous.
We are gonna get to that.
Okay.
So you start thinking about what it is that makes a good superhero costume, and there's all sorts of stuff that come up.
Or why costumes? Why do they have them?
Yeah. Well, the first most practical aspect, and I think the thing that came up first, is that you're trying to conceal a true identity,
right?
For whatever reason. From what we understand, the Phantom was sort of the first person to have a mask with the no pupils and a cape and just sort of...
Well, not cape, he had the purple...
He had the purple...
unitard.
Cape?
Yeah.
No,
you're right, okay, you're right, sorry.
Yeah, you're thinking of the Phantom Stranger.
I am thinking of the Phantom Stranger.
It's more of a...
Awesome 70s costume.
Yeah,
exactly.
And he's got
with the medallion.
Yeah, exactly. No, but the Phantom...
And the open collar.
The Phantom had a full kind of head mask and domino mask, and you couldn't really tell who it was, and the idea of a secret identity, which was then later adopted by Batman and Superman. Although it's interesting how Superman almost takes the reverse approach, because Superman has the cape and then this costume, very iconic, the big S symbol, but face completely exposed. Whereas Batman has the cowl and you can't tell who it is.
There's a giant leap of faith whenever it comes to the secret identity in these guys. I mean, literally, Clark Kent's secret identity is glasses.
Yes.
And that's lame.
Yeah.
That's you
deal.
His hair. It changes the hair, too.
You buy into that, but it's the same way you buy into Robin's little mask and Green Lantern's little mask.
If I knew you really well and you walked up and I only saw this much of your face, I know it's you.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's what happens. And from there, like, you start to get, in the late 30s, you get Superman, and while the costume has changed...
It's still basically the same.
It's still basically the same thing. He's, instead of having loops around his...
like the Roman boots, he's got just boots.
And they have the briefs on the outside, which I guess is like a wrestler. That's how I
I mean, it's kind of like, some sort of, there's a unitard, and then there's some sort of distinctive, like the...
Well, the joke became that that's underwear on the outside, but really I think what it comes from is those look like wrestling costumes.
You also kind of need the extra protection. When you're always having spandex.
Right.
You need a couple layers.
See, they didn't have
otherwise,
spandex
you
back
can tell
What did they have?
who's who.
I think it was just tight-fitting clothing. And if you look at older comics...
It's wool.
Yeah.
It didn't breathe. It did not
If you look
breathe.
at older comics, wool does breathe. And it wicks moisture. And Batman, of course, his costume is
almost exactly
the same. Same with Robin.
Just different gloves.
Captain America, originally he had, it was like a helmet that sort of fit around here.
Yeah.
But for the most part...
The costumes of the 40s have become so iconic, and so like the Golden Age Flash, Jay Garrick with the Mercury helmet, blue, and Captain Marvel, Shazam, like that.
Exactly.
These are costumes who have lasted the ages, and I wonder how much of it is because of their good costume design or good practicality, or they just became iconic.
Well, I think it's a little of both, depending on the costume.
Had the designs not been good in the first place, you wouldn't have remembered it, because I'm sure that there are hundreds of costumes which don't exist anymore. And it's funny that you mentioned Jay Garrick, because when you see him, it actually evokes that time. He's not in spandex. He's got he's got almost like
dungarees,
rider pants.
Or like we were talking, Mr. Terrific, who has got a green jacket that says fair play on it, and just like in a ski mask, because he's just a guy who went out to the streets and very simple, very got to the point.
But during that time, they came up with all of the things that stuck around. I mean, even if you think about the early Marvel comics, you had Namor. Who'd have thought that character would still be around? I mean, literally, he has a pair of green bikini briefs and wings on his ankles.
Yeah.
and he's still around for whatever reason, and that that becomes his costume, or the Human Torch or something like that.
Right.
Which is more of a design look.
But it's interesting to see how as they moved from the Golden Age into the Silver Age, how the idea of the costumes, still keeping the iconic idea, like the Fantastic Four were a team, and they all had basically the same costume with the four on it, whatever. But then the variations, you had when Human Torch flamed on, it was all flames, and the Thing just had the briefs, and then looking at how the Avengers kind of evolved. They kept their individual, Iron Man and Captain America, stuff like that. But for whatever reason, those kind of designs have carried through to the end of time. Like we were talking about, Hawkeye looked ridiculous, But that's
Well, I think like certain characters. Superman's costume is a great design. Batman's costume is a great design.
Yeah,
and they just get tweaked.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't ever change because the
yellow
silhouette of Batman.
Yeah.
It's great, and the colors are basically gray and black. It's basically the same thing. They go from blue and black, but it's still basically the same thing.
Can you think of a better design than Spider-Man?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, all the web you can. Okay. It's the red and the blue, and part of it, and this is where we get into, part of it is making a believable character and protecting his secret identity, but also it's part marketing. It's like, how can we create a character that can be recognized on the racks like that?
The guy on the cover. Well, there's not even that, but if you think about it, at the time that comic books started out, superheroes were not the only game in town.
Right.
Yeah. It's amazing, I know. But you had to have something on the cover that caught people's eyes and made them look at it.
More so than the westerns and the war comics.
A big colorful guy next to the cowboy, next to the romance comics would stand out on the newsstand. You'd see, boom, Superman.
It seemed fantastic. It seemed amazing. Yeah.
Or spectacular.
Oh.
Wow. Originally Spider-Man wasn't supposed to be blue.
Really?
Those were just the highlights. They colored it wrong after that.
Oh, really?
It was black, but the blue bits were, I could be completely wrong. I think that's right, though.
Blue has always been the highlight color for black in comics. Yeah.
So he wasn't blue.
Like the Hulk was gray. There was a lot of coloring problems in the 60s because they only had the 4 colors until and then they went to 8 colors, and then Neil Adams got all mad and got more colors, and it was amazing colors.
Can we get more colors in here?
We're going to talk about some more costume stuff right after this break.
This episode of iFanboy is brought to you by GoDaddy.com. Web hosting from GoDaddy.com includes 99.9% uptime, 24/7 support, and free access to Hosting Connection, the place to install over 30 free applications sure to help you get the most from your hosting plan and website. If you want to make an impact online, GoDaddy.com has what you need. .com names for as low as $1.99, plus world-class hosting, fast and easy website builders, and much, much more. Please support our sponsors by checking out GoDaddy.com and using the coupon code iFanboy to get 10% off your purchase and to let them know that we sent you.
It's funny how many of the costumes that we see today are still around, I suppose, but with little tweaks. We were talking about Batman's costume before, and originally
he had smaller ears. He had regular gloves on.
Yeah.
He's got the whole gauntlet now with the spikes. He just had gloves.
Yeah.
And he had little boots, and it was. But other than that, it's the same costume. He had the little black bat, which they went to the yellow and black bat, and they went back to the original black bat. But other than that, it's basically the same.
Did he have the belt originally?
He had a belt.
Utility belt.
Mm-hmm.
Utility belt.
I think the utility belt is really interesting to me because it got really high tech for a bit, where it looked like a Star Wars belt, it just had little. Yeah. Capsules, whatever it was.
He would tap the bottom.
And today, he's back to literally pouches. Snap button pouches. Yeah. Dude doesn't even use Velcro.
That was Frank Miller's Dark Knight. The first time bringing it back. He had that cartoony belt, and then in the original Bob Kane Batman, he has the pouches. So.
And it's funny that he that's what Batman wears now. He's got pouches.
Well, what I think is interesting is that you take these iconic costumes like Batman or Green Arrow or Flash or things like that, or a lot of the Marvel heroes, and we always talk about the '90s, how there was such a bad period and stuff like that. If you look at all these classic costumes like Batman, like Daredevil, like Thor, and the '90s tried to mix it up and make them look different, and it just didn't work. Think of the Azrael Batman and the Daredevil Mecha costume.
Mecha Daredevil.
Exactly, and what's funny is that then if you also look at other characters like Green Arrow, for example, Green Arrow had a very in the Silver Age a very simple. It was just a green shirt and the Robin Hood hat and stuff like that. And then in the '70s, Neil Adams evolved it a little more and made it into the look that when I think of Green Arrow, the goatee and the stylized with the arm things, and then
what kind of hat? What's that called? What's that hat called?
It's a Robin Hood hat. Yeah. And then if you look in the '80s, Mike Grell took it a step further and added the hood, and it was a little darker, but it still had the highlights of
it's an example of a costume that's been different but worked. Exactly. He works with the Robin Hood hat. He works with the hood.
Right.
For some reason, that you can change. It's a drastic change.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is and it isn't. But it's
yeah. And it's funny to see how the costume changes as they go. Like Spider-Man, for example. Classic the red and blue, and then they introduced the black. which everyone loved. Everyone loved the black costume.
Damn good design.
It's a good design.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, it's all about design.
Yeah, exactly.
And the black and white design still evoked this feeling of Spider-Man.
Yep. But then when they, in the Clone Saga, they introduced the Ben Reilly and there were variations on it, everybody hated it,
Because it's awful.
Yeah, exactly. You look at a character like Wolverine, who started with the yellow and blue, kind of those boots with the big spikes, with the big things that came up, and the mask, and then for whatever reason, I don't even know the reasoning, evolved into a brown version of that. It was the same costume, but brown and tan highlights.
They were tiger stripes.
Yeah, they were,
And whiskers.
And then he went to the more, I don't want to say functional, but it was less showy, which is interesting, and that's when he got really popular. And then
let's be honest,
after
the guy walks in a yellow-blue costume, you're gonna fall down.
But that's what's really interesting is that so in the 80s they evolved the yellow and blue costume to the tan and brown, and with the big red belt. I remember the big belt buckle. And then in the early 90s when Jim Lee kind of relaunched the X-Men title, they went back to the yellow and blue. I remember we all freaked out because we're back to the original costume.
Yeah.
But it was still the same costume, just the coloring changed.
Yeah.
Now we're in Cassidy's design is kind of a merging of the two and more of a
it's less. Well, the thing about the Wolverine costume is a really good one because that brings us to the question of functionality.
Yep.
And he had those big things that stick out, and then the big things that stick here, and that has no point.
Yep.
Well,
they do. They've got
point. But it's quite silly. And the thing is, when you think about Logan as a character, he's not silly. So why would he be in that?
Right.
And it's like it's an image that we came to associate with that character.
Right.
But it doesn't really make any sense. And one of the things when you talk about John Cassiday's work on Astonishing X-Men is that he rounded off those edges and brought it all down to something that looked a lot more
slim and
realistic and manageable.
Flexible.
Really,
Yeah, flexible.
I think that the thing about the 90s that you talk about is all of a sudden everything had
pouches
and stuff. Right, but it also had just a lot of superfluous stuff that didn't need to be there. And I'm pointing at my head specifically because I'm thinking of the Thor costume, which was like this deal. And then around he's a god, he doesn't need anything guarding his face. No,
they overdid it in the 90s where they added some, because they had a lot of artists who were just drawing. There was a lot of it was the Rob Liefeld, like I said, Cable, who, the big joke about Cable was that he just had all these pads and pouches and tiny ankles and it was funny because Liefeld, say what we will about his art or whatever, if you look at his costumes were very simplistic, even though they had all these pouches. I mean, the 90s seemed to be a time where they decided, you know what? This stuff that's worked for generations, we're going to change it all. We're going to give everyone new costumes. Because they basically tried to everyone in new costumes. Superman in a new costume, Batman in a new costume, Daredevil in a new costume, Spider-Man in a new costume, Thor. Yep. I mean, everyone got changed, and then eventually they all were changed back because they all...
But do you feel like the reason that they were doing that was because every month they were trying to come up with something new, so it'd be a new first, so that would be a collectible thing? This is the special issue.
Right, but that was the theme of that whole decade.
Right.
I got one recently. You guys are big fans of Captain America.
Yeah,
right?
Changed.
Bucky now has taken the mantle, and it's a different Captain America costume. What do you think of it?
I think the original costume is iconic. I think this one works, and it's a good costume, but I still, when I see the old costume, I go, ooh.
Well, you know what? I don't mind it because it's not Steve Rogers.
Right. It's also functional, like you talked about.
It is functional, like we talked about. Like Bucky doesn't have super soldier. He's got one robot arm.
Right.
And so it's like metallic, and I assume
it goes into the V, which is reminiscent of the Golden Age shield.
Yeah.
But
it makes more sense practically, and also I understand the need to move on a little bit. The actual Captain America costume sort of underwent a change.
It evolved as well.
Where
it was chainmail, wasn't it?
Right. Well, when the Marvel Knights series started, I think 2002.
Yeah.
You could all of a sudden you could see the chainmail a little more, or whatever it is. It was just layered stuff, and they drew it like that. They drew it like that from then on.
Yeah.
They also changed the mask slightly. They made it more like you could see the seams.
Which I liked, which I think came from the Ultimates.
Yeah. Brian Hitch did a lot of that, where it's with the stuff that Brian Hitch drew in the Ultimates was the Ultimates more so than any other modern comic. I could see those costumes being worn by people because you saw the seams. I think
that was the point.
Yeah,
and this is a good example is Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Now I don't like the Ultimates Hawkeye, but in real life, I would rather wear that costume than
the purple tunic.
Purple and blue are colors you don't put together.
Right.
You don't wear purple and blue together.
Right. Well, no, but it's not. But it's not even the colors. But it's.
But he used to be in the circus, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's got this weird medieval thing going where he's got that
Yeah, he's in the medieval archer costume.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is weird. And those boots. Remember those Marvel boots that went up and folded over?
Those are listen. Those boots were always my favorite costume element that you can put with somebody.
Captain America, Hawkeye, Taskmaster.
X-Factor had him.
Taskmaster has
Cyclops
the best.
had him. Yeah.
Taskmaster has the best costume, by the way.
I do like that.
Taskmaster's a combination of all of the things in comics that it's all of them together. It's a cape, it's
and
a
it shouldn't
hood.
work.
No, and it's the gloves that have. It's like Captain America gloves. They've got the sort of
the
big
gauntlets.
thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
What's interesting, you mentioned X Factor, is the X-Men almost don't have. Because they're always changing costumes.
Yeah, they do.
Everyone has their favorite, but they don't have, there's no iconic...
Well, no, what's interesting is that, so the X-Men, they've always had the school uniform, which is the yellow and blue, kind of the yellow going into the blue or black or whatever, which there have been variations of, and with the X logo. But then it's almost as if when they're young, they wear that costume, and then when they come into their own, they become an individual and have their own kind of costume. And they all have variations. Like Colossus has had, the classic Colossus is he's got the red and yellow that goes to the kind of points, and he's got big boots. But for a while, and around issue 200s, he had like a more Russian, red top with a clip over here, type thing.
What was he wearing in Astonishing? It was the old one, but
it was a variation. It was
again, he got rid of the big.
The big shoulders.
Cassidy's good at that. Cassidy's very slightly modernizing.
But what's interesting, somebody like Cyclops is, his iconic thing is the yellow visor with the blue skull cap and the kind of the underwear thing. But my favorite Cyclops costume was when the hair was flowing and the
with mask,
the Ghibli. Well, with always the visor.
No. There's a visor, but you can do it with a head thing.
Without.
Right.
Yeah. So visor, and then it goes into the thing here, and then the yellow with the bar. Yeah. I like that look. But then somebody like Kitty Pryde has never had a consistent costume her entire thing.
Neither was Dazzler.
No, Dazzler did. Dazzler had the blue with the yellow with the starburst. Yeah. No, Dazzler had a costume.
But again, that's only if you like that one. There's also a white Dazzler. I mean, none of these people have had.
Exactly. They mix the X-Men mix it up. I think the most amount of anybody.
Which is funny that people then complain when the movie comes out or whatever.
Yeah, because they never had it.
Yeah.
It's like, and say what you will.
I've never complained
about the Grant Morrison stuff or the movie. Either way, I think it's a fine idea.
Oh yeah, I thought the one thing of the Grant Morrison run on the X-Men that I agreed with was put them in street clothes, put them in a leather jacket, make them they can walk around. Although their street clothes was big yellow X's and stuff like that.
And that's not that much sweeter than some of the jackets people wear.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So when we come back, we're going to talk about our favorites and our least favorites.
Thanks to Netflix for sponsoring this episode of iFanboy. With Netflix, you can rent over 100,000 titles online with free shipping both ways to your home. They have over 40 shipping centers, so almost all deliveries happen within just one business day. If you have an Xbox 360, they're streaming to that. If you have a PlayStation 3, then you can get Blu-ray titles. So there's all sorts of ways that you can use Netflix. The Netflix plans start from just $4.99. As a new member, you can get a free, no-risk 2-week trial. Check it out at www.netflix.com/iFanboy, and don't forget to use that www when using that code.
All right, so to wrap this sucker up, we're gonna talk about some of our favorite and least favorite costumes, and I'm gonna start. I don't know why that was funny.
Wrap this sucker up.
Okay, I'm gonna start with two. I'm gonna start with a favorite and a least favorite. Right. Favorite, Marvel's Union Jack.
Oh, good.
With the British flag, with the and I do have an affinity for the tight full head hood where you can see the mouth. It's kind of sucky, you know what I mean, like that sort of look. I kind of like Spawn's kind of like cowl type thing. So that's one of my favorites. The least favorite, he's dead. He was an Avenger. Jack of Hearts. I always hated that costume with the gold and the one heart eye and stuff like that. I just always hated that costume. So yeah, not a good design. So.
Oh. It's a tough one. I'll give you two that I like that are at the opposite ends of the spectrum. We'd mentioned Taskmaster before. I've always loved that costume. I don't even know if I like the character. I like that he's not a good guy or a bad guy or whatever. But anytime you have a hood with a cape, and a cape makes no sense. No one needs a cape, but it's like kind of big, and he's got some straps, and he's got those boots. And Taskmaster.
So we're going back to Taskmaster.
No, I'm saying literally, it's one of my favorite costumes. Okay. And whenever I see it, I get very happy. Two is James Robinson's Starman. Which is the opposite way. As he went, crap, I have to be a superhero.
We'll just put on this jacket. And
he's like, well, I need this, and I'll have these goggles. That'll work. And all right, good to go. And
he's the Sheriff Star.
And he specifically chose the rod, the big long one, as opposed to the handheld one. Yeah. And it just it just works so much better. And he flies around holding the rod. And that really set the tone for the whole thing.
So what did you not like?
When I look at Crisis. And I see the Alexander Luthor and Psycho Pirate.
Fuck you! No, Psycho Pirate is one of the best costumes ever.
No, because it's got those. It's like the primary.
The Harlequin.
I hate that.
Which is funny because Psycho Pirate kind of looks like Jack of Spades, or Jack of Hearts.
Yeah.
But I have a Psycho Pirate action figure, and someone at work was like, "Is that Psycho Pirate?" I was like, because he's got the gold mask that changes. Oh, right. Psycho Pirate's the best.
Oh, but the Alexander Luthor gold. The Alexander Luthor with the red afro.
That was so 80s. Yeah.
For me, the bad ones are almost too easy. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. You can pick any 90s redesign or a costume. Shatterstar.
Yeah,
was.
I always say the '90s are almost off limits here because
it's just
Shatterstar was bad with the padding thing around.
Yeah.
Oh, that was bad.
And he had all the straps and the pouches.
Yeah.
And I think great. I mean, the great ones are also kind of gimmies. Like, and I think Superman is an iconic design, and it's just it's a great design.
I love how Superman though has been tweaked a little as we go forward to make it work. Like with the shield sort of. It's bigger, smaller.
Yeah.
The
and I love the Kingdom Come variation and stuff like that. Yeah.
And I think Batman is my favorite. I mean, that's just it's a design that almost has not changed since 60 years.
But the thing that he really loves that he's kind of shy to say is the '70s Dick Grayson Nightwing costume. I think
disco Nightwing.
Disco.
Kind of awesome.
Yeah. And in terms of iconic, but a different thing, I really do like the Madman's costume. The white with the red bolt with the Shazam bolt, but with the exclamation point. That has been consistent, and it works, and
is it a mask?
I think it's a mask. I think it's a mask. I don't know.
You're the only one that reads it.
Yeah.
I just thought of a really bad one. The Donna Troy had a few. Ooh. And when she had the short hair and like the little skirt and she had like gold shoulder plaids
I just remembered one.
It was like they took her. She had a really great red costume.
Yeah.
And then she had a really great black one. And they gave her this weird sort of Greek hybrid where she had the really bad Dorothy Hamill haircut that kind of flared out, and then she had a skirt, and it was just a bad design.
I remember a great one that you're gonna love.
Yeah.
Giffen JLA Black Canary.
That's a really bad one.
Oh, with the headband and the black canary coming out.
Martian Manhunter is kind of.
I like it though.
I like it. You like
simple.
it because of its nostalgia. You grew up with it, whatever. But I liked it better when they put him in clothes later. It just made more sense for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But I guess as a Martian,
When did they put him in clothes? He's never been in clothes.
Didn't he near the end, when he died, didn't he have a black?
Oh yeah,
they put him in a
yeah,
costume. Yeah, with the neck
I sort of
thing
didn't read any of that because it was not good.
I still love the Flash. It works.
The Flash is a great design.
Flash is great.
Yeah.
And I love how
simple.
I love how the subtle differences between the Flashes are visible.
Wallace,
whether the boots are yellow or they just have the line.
The best costumes are the simplest costumes.
Yeah.
You get too much in there. There are exceptions. Taskmaster is pretty busy, but usually Flash is.
That's my nostalgic one.
Right, but the Green Lantern.
Right.
The basic.
Yeah.
Not the
Hal Jordan.
Not the extravagant. Not the Guy Gardner one, which I could possibly put on my bad list.
Yeah.
But just the black and green.
Yeah,
it does. But when it first showed up, I was just like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
You know what oddly was very 90s, which I love, but I loved when Angel was Archangel. That blue and pink
I can see that.
kind of thing with the metal wings. I really like that.
I don't mind Electric Superman.
It's not a bad costume.
It's not. It's an interesting
Red or
design.
blue?
It doesn't matter. Blue.
Blue.
Yeah, so the red.
Red's a commie.
I'm a winter.
Yeah, red's a commie.
It's a commie.
Yeah.
You know what the funny thing is? When they change a little thing, Green Lantern's costume is classic now, but recently the edges of the thing have been.
Well, when the costume first came, it was green. And then at one point they added green to the shoulders, and then they went back to no green, and now they're back again. They keep going back and forth on those.
That does, but the actual logo itself, I thought the logo is so classic, and it's on my skin that I think that it shouldn't change.
In the world of Green Lantern, what do you think of Sinestro's classic Sinestro with the blue with the black?
It's a Jack in the Box.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they did a fine job redesigning that.
Yeah, that was well overdue.
That's absolutely.
Yeah.
We
could do this for hours.
Yeah. So please continue.
Tell us what you think your favorite costumes are. Email us at contact@ifanboy.com.
And you can call us and you can describe what you're wearing. At 888-FANBOYS, which is 326-2697.
And get to ifanboy.com and comment on this. This one could go for a while.
Yeah,
it could be really cool.
Let's hear the voting.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more than I'm going to think of. Yep. And then get to revision3.com/ifanboy for more videos and for the forums there.
I need those big boots.
I feel
like I could add that to my wardrobe.
I used to want them so bad, and there's no way to pull off a cape, and there's no way to pull off the boots.
Yeah, especially the Wolverine boots. I did a model of Wolverine when I was in 7th grade, and they had the boots, and I was like, how do they not fall down? How does he cross his legs?
When they have really big belts, how do they bend over?
Yeah, exactly. How do they go to the bathroom?
Well, that's a whole other show.
Yeah.
This week on iFanboy, going to the bathroom.